please.
Oh, in regards to climate change, how do you think that the U.S. can change their whole idea of thinking when it comes to obsolescence here in the States, how everything's made to be broken and consumerism and keep on purchasing things in regards to changing energy, because I think the two are hand in hand, and if your society is always telling you to keep purchasing things, how can you tell them to now all of a sudden to start conserving? And do you think that they will have an effect?
Yeah, I think, we've got a lot of work to do on climate change. We don't have a bill yet in the U.S. Senate. We may not have a bill before our negotiators have to go to Copenhagen less than 2 months from now to try to have an international agreement that'll put us in a weaker position. But you get at a larger problem. It's not just the absence of a bill. It's what is the public consciousness about the environment. We made a lot of strides in that when I was young. People littered more than they. We had an anti-litter campaign that one of our first ladies, Mrs. Lady Bird Johnson, ran, which is a great campaign. We shouldn't throw, Coke cans and beer cans out of automobiles. People did that more liberally in the 50s and early 60s than they do now. That was a good thing. We learned not to litter. But we're very wasteful as a society. You talk about the built-in, obsolescence of products. We don't conserve as much. And so maybe in our daily lives, if we practice environmentalism, recycling is very simple to do. You can do it in most cities and towns in America. It pays off. We're 300 million people. If we can make reductions in, if we can make inroads in some of these problems, it has a major impact. And we're by far the largest economy in the world. What are we, 6% of the world's population, and we expand more than 20% of the world's energy. And so America, we do need reform here at home too. If that's where you were heading with your question, I very much agree with it. Yes?
I was just wondering, what do you think about the statement that Mustafa, the Interior Minister of Iran, said before going to the conference in Egypt that the only way that Iraq will reach in peace is by having American soldiers or other foreign soldiers leave Iraq?
Well, I think those soldiers are going to leave. I mean, President Obama's agreement is that we are on a essentially by 2011, I believe, the end of 2011, the great majority of our soldiers will have left. So I think I didn't see the statement by the Interior Minister, but that's what he said. I think we are on track to do that. Nobody thinks we can just take them all out in a couple of months. It would be too jarring for internal stability. The challenge will be, can the Iraqis now provide the security, police and military that the U.S. has been providing for 6 years? It's going to be a tall order for that. I hope they can. But there are some questions about whether they will be able to do that successfully. But I do think, I think we've done what we can do in Iraq. The President was right to decide to take us out, especially because we have this other conflict in Afghanistan, which I believe is more serious, and therefore we have to focus on that. Good question.
I have time for about one more. If there's someone who has
I picked this publication up, and the first article is on Turkey in the West, and it said that we had a close relationship, U.S., with Turkey up until about 10 years ago, and that cooled off, and Turkey was a good mediator between the West and the East and the Muslim population. Have you comment on that?
Happy. Questions on Turkey. Turkey's a key country. If I had to...
But it says that we have decided to ignore Turkey. We're not working with them.
I don't think we've ignored Turkey, but I do think the relationship has...
Marian Smith thinks so.
All right. Well, I respectfully disagree with Marian Smith, but I would say this. I think the relationship has deteriorated over the last decade. I think that is true. And Turkey is the bridge country. It's a Muslim, secular democracy. There aren't many countries like that. It's the bridge between Europe and the Middle East. It's a NATO ally of the United States, and yet it's a country that talks to the Syrians, to the Iranians, and the Israelis. So Syria has a capacity more than any other country in the world to talk to all the regimes in the Middle East. And for that reason and many others, it's a critical ally of ours. And President Obama visited Istanbul. He visited the Hagia Sophia, and I think the Blue Mosque. He spent a lot of time there. We already see the United States rising in the favorability polls in Turkey because I think of some of the things that he's done. So yes, I think we should pay more attention to Turkey.
Take from one of these publications and read it.
All right, I'll read the articles. Tell you what I think. Anybody else wanted to ask a question I didn't have a chance to?
I actually had a quick question.
Ask a question.
I was thinking about what the rise of the countries that you were talking about Brazil, about India, and about China. And then I was thinking about how you were following up and you were talking about anti-poverty methods and how we can further the cause of human rights and social justice. And those three countries aren't exactly forerunners. Brazil has the highest discrepancy between wealth and in the global, of all economies. China's not exactly known for its human rights.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you think that what does that say about social justice globally and human rights as a global mission?
They're all different. One of the reasons why I do not believe that China will overtake the United States, even economically, is because they're not a democracy. They have significant human rights problems, significant disaffection among many people in their country about their government, and I don't think you can presume stability there because of that. I think India and Brazil have a stronger case because they are democratic. And you're right, they have huge income inequalities and extremes in their country. The Indians have a population of over 1 billion people, and 600 to 700 million of them live below the poverty line. It's the greatest collection of poor people in the world. And so I was in India in August. They have a very, very great Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, and his goal is to lift as many people out of poverty as he can. In India and China, together, I think nearly 500 million people have been brought out of poverty because of the economic growth in the last 30 years. So if they can continue the growth rates, 8, 9, 10%, which is a very tall order, you might see a significant impact on poverty, favorable impact. But they have enormous problems in all those countries. In the northeast of Brazil, a huge collection of poor people. So you're right to point that out. These countries are not the level of economic development of Western Europe or Japan or the United States. But 50 years from now, they might be, if they continue to grow. And I think that India and Brazil are in a stronger position because they are democracies. The Indians had an election in May. You know how many people were registered to vote? 714 million. That's more than twice the population of the United States was registered to vote. It's an incredible accomplishment that they are a democracy and that they are soon to be the largest country in the world. It's a great strength that comes with that, I think. But I do think Americans need to be focused on poverty alleviation and social justice as two international issues where we need to be arguing for improvements on both. And I think if we do that, people will think better of the United States and understand that we are in touch with the real reality in a lot of these countries. Thank you.
Well, this was originally billed as a lecture on international affairs, but I see that it was a great lesson in diplomacy as well. Please join me in thanking.
Thanks. We got you out of here in time to have enjoy Friday night. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I'll read that. I'll take it. You keep yours. I got